All right, good morning, everyone. Let me turn this off. Typical. That's okay. Good. Welcome this morning to the Yuma County regular session of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We'll also be sitting as all special taxing districts, and this is the February 17, 2021 meeting. It's 9 a.m. The board members will attend either in person or by telephone or remotely. We do have a supervisor that has been excused by someone higher than me. So this is the call to order. So the Pledge of Allegiance is the first thing on our agenda. So will everybody please stand up and will Supervisor Simmons lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Well, the first item in the agenda, and I know it sounds a little muffled, and you try to do the best you can with this mask, but sometimes if you cannot understand what I'm saying, you won't be the only one. So the first item in the agenda is call to the public. Call to the public is held for the public benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and a decision at a future date. Anyone who's concerned about COVID-19 does not want to be put in an open setting can submit an email, call to the public statement at publiccomment@yumacountyaz.gov. These email forms of public comment will be accepted until 8 a.m. in the morning of the meeting. All public comments will be read out loud during the Yuma County Board of Supervisors meeting that starts at 9 a.m. Do we have any statements?
Chairman Reyes, members of the board, no, I have received no email comments.
All right, well, then we'll move on to someone that put up his card here. His name is Mike Perry. We're not gonna give out your telephone or your address, so would you please step up? You had a call to the public, sure, sir?
Good morning. Thank
Good
you
morning.
for hearing me this morning.
Morning.
My name is Mike Perry, and I want to come here because I had a real problem with getting my second shot for the virus, and I wanted to express all time, I'm not coming up here to complain. I want to go ahead and thank Kevin Tennell and John Lyons for the additional help that I needed after 2 weeks of frustration to go ahead and get my second shot. I was concerned because my wife, who taught school here for many years, is a paraplegic. I'm 78, almost 79, and I'm also diabetic. So I needed to get that second shot. I'm going in another week to get back surgery. Thrilled. But anyhow, thank them very much. I think we can do better. You know, everything we get from the state is always, we need to have a plan B. And I'm willing to volunteer, if you ever want to, set up a thing for maybe 1 or 2 people for each supervisor to act as a volunteer to help them with some of the problems that may come up down the pike that we can put more time at. I have previously retired out from Yuma County Public Works, and I tend to think outside the box. I'm a retired Navy commander from the base. I've solved a lot of problems there. When I was at County Public Works, I took care of the problem with the Gila River flooding in a kind of a unique way. I went ahead and put together the package, got a $1.25 million grant from FEMA to build a new public works facility, put an endorsement on that, took it to Phoenix and had them transfer the endorsement on their letterhead to get the thing. Got to make it easy for them sometimes. Took the money from when we took care of the Gila River flooding, we were about $300,000 below the FEMA amount. FEMA allowed us to keep it, and we were down on Avenue B at the time, and we built a zero discharge wash rack to wash the county vehicles. Keep all this. So anyhow, I'm available, and I got a resume over here if you want to see what it is. I'm going to retire. I'm still working. I've been working now for 70 years since I started paying Social Security, but I just finished project manager on a new port of entry for San Luis Logistics in December. So, but that's all I have to say. Thanks so much I know we can do better. We need to be thinking outside the box, sometimes having a plan B, and I'm available.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Don't step out yet. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge your contribution. I mean, obviously you are retired, but you still keep pretty close contact with people in Yuma County. We appreciate that. I mean, actually, we're not really all proud of the rollout of the vaccine. I mean, this is a situation where we think the demand far outweighs the supply. I mean, and so it's been a difficult process. And I know that the county health department, I don't see anyone from the county health department here. I was hoping that they'll be here. And we're not going to get into discussion, but we certainly appreciate your offer to assist. And, we'll take your name. We got your name and your address and your telephone number. And if there's a way that we can find for you to help out, we certainly would look into it. So thank you very much for your comments, and thank you for your patience.
If anybody wants to hear the tale of woe that took over a couple of weeks, and I don't know how many phone calls, I'll be happy to share it with them, but I don't think this is the spot to do it.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Okay, anybody else on the call to the public? I will keep the call to the public item open throughout the meeting, so if somebody shows up a little late or something, it still needs to address the board, you'll be able to. So we're gonna move on the agenda to our next item. And the item is presentations, proclamations, and appointments. During this segment of the agenda, board members may discuss the presentations and proclamations and may announce appointments to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission and the Yuma County Board of Adjustment. No legal actions will be taken. Is there any board members that have any appointments to make? If not, we'll move on. I'm sure there will be some further on the road. So the first item on our presentation, proclamation, appointments agenda item is the presentation of the county line by Yuma 77, the Yuma County Government Channel.
The Board of Supervisors held their annual retreat as budget season is underway. Our housing department is putting good use to a grant that was received. And Yuma County Superior Court and Yuma Justice Court are offering veterans a path to recovery through a new specialty court program. These stories and more, this is your County Line. Recently, the Board of Supervisors held their annual retreat, which is normally with all department heads and elected officials. This year, due largely to COVID-19, most staff joined by watching on TV and Facebook Live as the board started laying the groundwork for the upcoming budget season. During the retreat, the board heard a number of presentations focusing on the economic outlook, historical budget, and financial information surrounding your county government. Employee benefits and long-range financial forecasts were also discussed. The information gathered is a critical piece of the budget puzzle.
So the budget process ties into our strategic plan in an important way because the budget is a way to identify how we accomplish the three pillars of our strategic plan, which are effective governance, operational excellence, and valued employees and resources.
With the retreat over, county officials are now setting their sights on the budget meetings to be held in May. About 4 years ago, the Yuma County Housing Department applied for a grant from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD. Although it has taken a while to receive, the wait was worth it. In 2016, Yuma Housing applied for a security and safety grant, and it was received in 2018. They recently put that grant to use, making upgrades to their properties. With the grant, Yuma Housing was able to add a shaded solar panel parking structure at their Somerton location.
Our funding we get it from HUD, and we don't get a lot funding, so I think this helps us in reducing our costs for the electricity, and at the same time, it serves us as shades, for our employees for our parking.
They were also able to install new security systems and energy-saving LED lights at all 3 of their sites in Yuma, Somerton, and San Luis. The Yuma County Housing Department has a few more projects coming up this year. We'll keep you informed on their progress as they develop. Many veterans return home strengthened by their military service, but more than half return home struggling with mental health-related issues. The Yuma County Superior Court and Yuma Justice Court, in collaboration with many county and local agencies, have founded the Yuma County Veterans Court, which offers solutions to veterans struggling with mental health.
We have a specialized team dedicated to Veterans Treatment Court. The veterans will go to court with other veterans. They'll see one judge every time they come to court. They'll see a Veteran Justice Outreach, which is a VJO, and they'll have one probation officer, and we also have a dedicated Veterans Treatment Court coordinator.
Through an applied grant, funding for the treatment program was awarded and helped with the implementation of the program. Participation provides a possible dismissal and/or reduction of charges to veterans and offers many assistance programs. A veteran mentor is also assigned to help encourage, guide, and motivate individuals through the program. The first session of Veterans Court was held February 3rd. The goal of the program is to help veterans overcome the factors that have brought them before court.
I'm Elia Juarez, and this is your Library Update. It's our birthday, and to celebrate, we want to give you a chance to win some money. The Yuma County Library District is turning 100 years old, and in order to celebrate, we're also hosting our winter reading program. If you go online to our website at yumalibrary.org, you can download a bingo-style playing sheet that will tell you what kinds of books you should read to complete a bingo. There are 3 different bingo cards. All the cards are available in Spanish as well. If you get one line finished on the sheet, you can turn that in for a chance to win a $25 gift card. For more information on this and everything that's going on at the library, make sure to check out our website at yumalibrary.org and follow us across all of our social media platforms.
Before we head out, if you're into bargains, the county surplus auction is just around the corner. Through an online auction site, the county government is auctioning off all kinds of equipment that the county no longer uses. You can purchase anything from cars, trucks, laptops, printers, and chairs. The list goes on. Currently, the auction is closed, but mark your calendars as the county surplus auction site will be conducted from March 12th through the 26th. The money collected from the online auction goes back into our general fund. For more information, visit our website at yumacountyaz.gov. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this County Line. If you'd like to watch past episodes, log on to yumacountyaz.gov/VOD. And don't forget, you can join us live on Facebook. We'd like to leave you now with a message from Yuma County employee Daniel Cruz, telling us why he loves working for Yuma County. We'll see you next time.
Yuma County, in the ITS department, they have entrusted me, as being the GIS manager. The support that I've gotten from my management, it's been very positive. For my part, I enjoy what I do, and I know for a fact that my staff also enjoys what they do in GIS. The same way I see it in other divisions within ITS, where they like their job, and it's easier to work that way because they're doing something that they actually enjoy.
Oh, well, that was a little jarring. I don't know, for those of you who've been around a long time, that judge that you saw on that Veterans Court, that used to be our judge. That's Andrew Gold, who is now Supreme Court Justice in the Arizona courts. So it's just nice to see him in that picture, but obviously you don't expect to have your court hearing would be with that judge. He's now a U.S. State Supreme Court member, so it's nice to see him again. All right, so that was the presentation of the County Line by Yuma 77. The next item in the agenda is for Human Resources, and it's an acknowledgement from county departments and offices for an acknowledgement of their participation in the Yuma County Socks and Blanket Drive for Amber Displays, and to announce the 3 winning departments or offices in the Yuma County Socks and Blanket Drive. Felicia is here to get us started on this.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes and members of the board. Felicia Frauster, HR Director. I want to just take you back, maybe back in December of 2020, we had challenged all departments and offices to participate in the sock and blanket challenge that we had worked on participating with Amberley's Place. Dina Ivacho's here to represent Amberley's Place, but we want to be able to take the opportunity to thank all county departments and offices and the employees who actively participated. We were able to receive 600 socks that we donated and over 100 blankets. And it's definitely during the time that, the weather has changed, and to be able to provide this to Amberley's Place was a great service, and we thank all of our employees. I know that Dina would like to be able to make a comment, and then I have asked her to please assist me and my fellow benefit staff members to present the trophies to the winning departments and offices. So with that, Dina.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Dina Vancho, Senior Crisis Response Victim Advocate at Amberley's Place. On behalf of Amberley's Place, we would like to thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Human Resources, and all the Yuma County departments for thinking of Amberley's Place and the hundreds of child abuse, domestic violence, sexual assault, and elder abuse victims we assist daily. It is because of donations like this that continue to let Yuma crime victims know that they are supported, loved, and cared for, and allow us to continue to provide crisis response and fulfill the needs of victims after their victimization. We thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So with that, if I could ask if Carla Vasquez and Maribel Valtierra, who are our benefits specialists, if they would assist me and be able to announce our winning departments, and we would also ask that a representative from each of the departments is here so that they would be able to receive their trophy. So we'd like to be able to thank our third place winner, which is,
So like Felicia mentioned, we're just so thankful for everybody, and our Employee Health Team Committee is one of the main resources that we use to announce and to spread the word. So we're very glad to have our third place is Finance, and Leanne and Carol are here to accept the award. Thank you so much.
No, that's why they're here. I thought we were getting audited or something.
You're like, what's happening? Our second place is Administration, Yuma County Administration. So thank you so much.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I want to recognize Amelia O'Donnell because she organized that for county administration and got us all motivated, and then delivered the socks and blankets. So
We know who's important here.
And last but not least,
Wow.
We have the HR.
We knew that. If I were the other departments, I would be asking for a recount. There's something going on. No, we know.
I would like to thank Felicia for always encouraging us, even though we are the ones who tend to host events like these. She definitely keeps it entertaining for us and motivates us as a department as well with weekly challenges and emails, and has us also be involved in the whole process, which I know Human Resources really enjoyed. So I'm really excited that
Is there some money? Is there any money involved in this?
Just donations. So, thank you.
Yes. It's one of those situations, Felicia, where you guys set the example, and it really is a good one. I know how active you all are. And when you put together a drive, there's always normally somebody that drives the process, and you guys drive this process, and we understand that. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, and just want to be able to just inform everyone, this is just not our only challenge. We will continue to do other challenges because it's part of us as an employer, as our healthy worksite program that we participate in. And so it's just not looking at your overall health, but also your mental health and what your involvement is in the community. So please be on the lookout for other challenges that will be coming. So thank you.
Yeah, when you win, you get a bigger one. So next time. All right, thank you. Thank you very much, ladies. And thank you for being involved. It's involved with you all. So that's going to almost clear the room. It doesn't have anything to do with your presentation, Julie. They're just clearing the room because they're giving space. The next item in the agenda is for county administration. Is a presentation by Julie Angel. I like to pronounce that a little better. It's almost like Angel, but it's Angel. President and CEO of Greater Yuma Economic Development Corporation, on their activities.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the Supervisory Board. It is always a pleasure and honor to be here, and I really want to thank you. Your county line is always so impressive, but what you're doing for the veterans is incredible, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts, because it is a very difficult time for everyone, but they especially. So thank you for having me here today. This is our mid-year report for 2021. I like to start off with trends. And one of the biggest trends that we're seeing right now is reskilling and recovery. And it did start under the previous administration, but the new administration is embracing this and making it a priority as well. We have learned that COVID has displaced many, many, many millions of people. And the reskilling of that talent and workforce is critical to moving forward from this epidemic. And labor markets have constricted significantly due to COVID. And inclusive economies is going to be a top tier requirement for the administration and for companies who are trying to be good citizens. They're going to make it a priority that communities be inclusive, that they are well-rounded when they're making their site selections. So those things are what's kind of changed. What hasn't changed is urban areas continue to recover at a much greater rate than the remainder of the U.S. And we are going to continue to see disruptions due to COVID. Our labor trends are very similar to what they were last year. However, we have a greater number of people who are now displaced due to COVID. And so we are keeping a very close watch on this. I'm very happy to say that a lot of our manufacturing operations, food production operations, and logistics operations have not been affected and have not had to lay off. So our investor trends, we became very concerned when all of this was happening that our investors were going to be greatly affected, and therefore we offered our investors the opportunity to abate, delay, postpone, whatever they needed to do in order to remain an investor with our organization. I'm happy to report that we do have 118 private sector investors. We did lose 3 due to COVID, and we had 1 decrease, but we also had 1 increase. We have 4 new investors, and so we actually are ahead of where we were when this all started. And we are continuing our per capita move with our communities, our public sector investments, and we're still using the 2010 census population, but as soon as we get the 2020 census numbers, we will be adjusting these rates. The $250 per capita is incredibly low for this state. When you compare us to communities of our size and MSAs, metropolitan statistic areas of our size, they are upwards of $7.50 to $8 per capita that they're investing in economic development. Now, I'm not saying all that money needs to come here to GYDC. I'm saying we do need to take a serious look at how much we are investing in economic development, because that is going to be the future and how we grow the economy here. So moving on, these are our the projects that are in the hopper right now. And these projects are not really tentative. These projects are either have signed an agreement, have acquired, or are in negotiations acquiring the land. And so they, as you can see, they're spread out throughout Yuma County. We have 3 in Yuma, 3 in San Luis, and 2 in East County. And the project estimates on the right represent all of these collaboratively. However, I do have some good news. We received a call yesterday that this major project that we've been working for almost a year is going to be here on Monday of next week doing their land site tour. They are going to surpass all of this in one project. It's a $100 million investment. It is several hundred jobs. It is food production. It's an international company that has been in business for 250 years. So it has an incredible reputation. If we were able to secure this, it would be a tremendous opportunity. They are looking at San Luis and they are looking at Yuma. They have 2 sites selected in Yuma. Yuma does have, they are an incredibly large water user, and that was one of the drawing points for us, is our ability to meet those needs. So we'll keep you abreast of that, but these are our secure projects that will happen in this fiscal year. So what have we been working on? We have been working on several grants. We assisted the Greater Yuma Port Authority with their ADOT ESP grant, and I'm happy to say they were awarded. We applied for and received a grant for a multifamily housing study, and that has been published. I'll have a slide on that in a minute. The EDA grant for our spaceport analysis was complete, and I'm very happy to say that analysis came back very favorable, and we're moving forward with our FAA application. Keep in mind, this has to be a statewide asset. It can't just be a Yuma asset. We are going to need funding from the state. We're going to need partnerships from our universities so that this is also an educational opportunity for R&D and actually satellite development. So we need to have those partnerships in place. Right now, the estimated cost of our FAA licensing is $500,000. And so we will need some partnerships to get this thing done. Very, very proud of Arizona Western College. They just completed their TBIC certification. Matthias Bayer, from Germany, from the TBIC, was here last week and did his final inspection, and he had nothing but praise for Arizona Western College and everything they're doing to make it easier for our major employers to have trained employees. And going back to our transatlantic business partnership, we did virtual trips this year. And so we were in Germany the week of October 5th through the 8th. We were in Italy the week of October 19th through the 22nd. We were back in Germany the 16th through the 17th. And we were in Israel in Germany December 7th through the 10th. I'm very, very proud to report that we have leads from every single one of these trips. And these trips were virtual, by the way. And that's why we were able to do so many. What a great opportunity for us to find out how wonderful TBIC is to work with, and to have each meeting or each trip had over 30 companies that we were meeting with. And we have made connections. Most recently, just last week, we have 3 startups in Israel that are working with the Yuma Cancer Center. So they are doing research and development, and they are going to partner with our cancer center. So we're really excited about all the relationships that we made during these. And then our economic development incentive bill was sponsored again by Representative Dunn. We took the entire summer. Last year when we came out, it was a rural-only bill, and we got a lot of feedback saying the League of Cities wouldn't support it because it wasn't statewide. We had some other pushback, ATRA pushback because it wasn't statewide. So over the summer, we revamped the bill. We made it a statewide bill. We had support from the Arizona Commerce Authority. They were very pleased with the changes that we made. We had support from Southwest Gas, Arizona Public Service, Arizona Association of Economic Development, Local First, and it went to committee yesterday and it failed. It's done. We lost in a tie, 5-5. And once again, ATRA came at us really hard, and ATRA changed their stance from last year to this year. It is just plain unfair. And so our Republican representatives voted with ATRA. And our Democrats, and I gotta give kudos to Representative Fernandez. She fought hard for us. She really did, and so did Representative Dunn. Both of them fought very hard. Paul Melcher was on the ground floor of this, and he continued to help us and support this bill. So kudos to the county and their involvement. I am gutted that we weren't successful, because this really was a game changer for rural Arizona. It was going to actually have companies consider other areas besides Metro Phoenix. And here's the multi-family housing report. This is available, and all you have to do is contact us and we can get you a copy of the study. The purpose of this study was we have a lot of military families that are separated when they come to Yuma because the housing allowance does not cover the expenses of coming to Yuma. They can't afford to bring their family, and that is because we do not have a surplus of multifamily homes, and we do not, what they have to do is either take a home to rent, and their BAH does not cover that expense, and so it is cost prohibitive for them to do it. We have heard the same critical problem with our education. They are actually losing teachers after 1 year because of housing. Teachers are not able to find a place they feel safe when they are staying in our apartment complexes. They do not feel safe, and they can't afford the housing to live in a single family or to live in a single home. So we're losing teachers, and we have our military families that are being separated. So we did this study in order to demonstrate and hopefully attract some new development. I'm so proud of one of our major developers, Mr. Jacobson. He is actually building a new multifamily home, large multifamily facility out by the Walmart on 8 East. So we are going to be getting some new options on the market, which is desperately needed. But we also need to make sure that the Yuma 50 is championing this BAH so that we can get that rate adjusted for our military families. The Yuma multiversity is still a priority, and the brick and mortar is still very much important because we are going to be a destination. And with our international boundaries, we're going to have students coming from Mexico who are going to need to stay here and are going to need to have this opportunity to have their education in the U.S. and have the full experience. And so we are completely continue to support the multiversity campus. As a matter of fact, GYEDC submitted the grant to the EDA for phase 2 of this. With the city being a public entity, it needed to be a not-for-profit entity that submitted the grant, and GYEDC stepped up and did that for the multiversity campus. We have our new marketing person, Amber Sheck, and I've got to congratulate Amber. She has done a phenomenal job increasing our presence in social media and on Instagram. And our presence has increased significantly. She also was the author of our Pain is Optional website, which is a new website that has garnered a lot of attention. And this is telling everyone why Yuma is a place to come, especially if you want to reduce your costs, have a better quality of life. And the one I am most proud of is this economic resource portal that was created at the height of the pandemic. Amber had this done in 48 hours, and we became one of the main resources for data across the state. We had La Paz using it. We had other counties along the river using this website because we had up-to-date information about what was happening with COVID. Still very relevant today, still receives a lot of traffic, and we continue to keep new information posted on this website. And this, again, was in partnership with the county, this resource portal, and all of our partner agencies contribute to the information that is on there. So if you haven't looked at it yet, I encourage you to check it out. It's still very relevant. Oh, business retention. What are we doing in business retention? Business retention has become even more important due to the fact that business attraction is not as easy as we would like to see it be. And so our Arizona Manufacturing Partnership partnered with 3 of our industry sectors: aerospace, automobile, and manufacturing, refrigeration. And they did a Lego simulation, and these people were all tested before they came into the confined spaces. They were using safe practices, and this was a tremendous success. The companies that participated and all their employees, the raves at how valuable this was incredible. So we're really glad that we did this. And yesterday we actually had in-person meetings. Arizona Commerce Authority came to our offices, and we held meetings all day with several companies here in Yuma County. And they are relying heavily on the Commerce Authority for assistance in reaching out other markets, and they're relying heavily on funding training. And the training that continues to flow is, we held several Zoom training sessions with our manufacturers, and our attendance was a sellout every single time. So we're going to continue to offer those things as well. Forefront ED had an incredible year. We were going to hold a binational full-day conference, and because of COVID, it was broke down into webinar series. Our webinar series broke every record. We had over 800 to 1 million people attending, and they were from all over the US, Canada, and Mexico. We even had some from Italy participating in our binational forums. And it exceeded all expectations, and it was received so well. And we partnered with Ensenada, we partnered with Tijuana, we partnered with Mexicali, and we partnered with San Luis we had the Port of San Diego, and we had, of course, our Port Authority. So we had Buna George, and we are going to do it again because it was so popular. These webinar series are now available via YouTube because we've had requests to see them again. And so they were a tremendous hit. Our education committee is going strong with Mexico. And again, that's why this multiversity is so important, because we do have this partnership with our Mexico counterparts in education. And there is a great demand for dual teaching, dual credits, dual certifications. And nursing and teaching are two of the most critical areas of need. So forefronted, as I was saying, we've had some good and bad things happen there. With the opportunity zones, we really, really pushed to be able to modify our boundaries in the opportunity zone in order to get our port of entry included, in order to get some of our industrial areas in Somerton and in Yuma. We got a lot of traction right before the election, and then just a week or two before the election, we got word it's not going anywhere, it died. So we were not able to get our opportunity zone boundaries modified, and that was going to be critical for investment attraction. And so again, another devastating blow. However, we continue to fight, and we'll see if we can't come up with something else that will make this work for the areas that don't have enough infrastructure yet and need that additional investment. So the Yuma 50 is supporting several bills. Tim Dunn, or Representative Dunn, sponsored 2288, which is the Fairground relocation funding. It's a $5 million ask at the state. We're supporting that bill. And Representative Osborne has House Bill 2128, which is a waiver of application fees for spouses and active duty and veterans for 2 years. Once you have a 2-year window after you exit the military, that you can apply for licensing. I'm sorry, not certification, but licensing. So say your spouse is an optometrist and she needs a license to practice in Arizona. There is a lot of cost associated with that. Well, they're waiving those fees in this bill. This bill is asking that those fees be waived so that these people can come in here, bring that talent here, bring those services here, and that as a state we benefit. So this is what this bill is going to do for us. And then we are also opposing House Bill 2447, which is the ADOT bill, which is going to force all of the ADOT enforcement people to within 5 miles of the Mexico border, which will be a disaster, we all know. So we are opposing that bill, and we're keeping tabs on that. Oh, sorry. So this was the statistics that we used to make our argument for that rural bill, and this continues. The sad news is, this was 2019. If we were to take our COVID numbers now, the orange bars in Yavapai, Mojave, Coconino, Pinal, Yuma, and Northeast Arizona would disappear because those gains have been lost due to COVID. And all of this was lost on them yesterday. They did not, it just didn't resonate that rural Arizona is in critical condition right now, and we have to do something. What that is now, I'm not sure, but we will continue to wave this flag and try and get the message across that as a state, we're in trouble because there's only one area in the state that is doing well, and that is Maricopa. They have all the wealth, they have all the investment in infrastructure. We saw presentations from Waymo yesterday when we were in the committee, and what they're able to do there because they have broadband. I mean, just something as simple as well, it's not simple, but just broadband is a game changer. And so there are so many ways that we are deficient in this spoke outside of that hub that as a state is not sustainable, and so we'll continue to fight the fight. Spaceport, as I already mentioned, we're very excited about the opportunity that is being presented to us with our wonderful location. We are very rare, and the fact that we can be over the Sea of Cortez in 6 seconds is pretty impressive. So we will proceed with this, and hopefully next year when I'm doing my mid-year report, I'll have an update on our FAA license. And again, quality of life and also this inclusive economy is very, very important going forward. And can't say I am so proud of Yuma County and how we embrace our cultures, how we embrace our demographics, and it is a very unique place and a proud place to live and do business. And I am honored to be able to be doing economic development in this region. So I am happy to answer any questions, and I'm going to clean up my mess here, or not my mess, but my germs. Any questions?
You know, that was a pretty thorough presentation, and I think, well, I'll allow the rest of the board to ask questions as soon as I finish telling you how proud we are of the job you guys are doing. I mean, it's incredible because we know how difficult that fight is. But when I hear comments statewide, I always hear comments about the Yuma Economic Development Corporation being active everywhere. So if there's something that you can consider a failure because it doesn't go through, it isn't necessarily that way. I mean, you put Yuma on the map and you make sure that our issues are discussed. And even if you don't sometimes get what you want, in this particular case, some of those legislative acts, they know that you keep them focused on the issue, and that is important. One of these days it's going to break. So,
I want to stay that optimistic. I hope you're right.
Yeah, I think that is kind of a key to success here, is just having the patience to see all your efforts come through. Just don't give up. I mean, keep fighting. I mean, we sent you a pretty good representative there, so, from the board, and I think he'll do a great job. Any questions from, no?
Keep up the good work.
Okay.
I mean, I know it's going to be frustrating, but hold the course. You're doing good.
Well, you got to remember, and you made clear in that presentation, this is not the time everybody is really actually moving forward. This is the time you're surviving the process. The only question I had is YDC in any way involved in helping some of the businesses go through the PPP process at all?
Yes, as a matter of fact, and that has ebbed a little bit because there's no more loans. That portal was made available because of that. It had step-by-step process for applying. It had all the rules and regulations on paying it back, whether or not you would be required to pay it back. And we counseled all of our major employers. As a matter of fact, we had biweekly calls for 4 months with our major employers. Once for a COVID wellness, do you have any outbreaks? Because we did have several that had outbreaks. And then, are you applying for your PPP? And you and I talked quite a few times as well. So we did keep our finger on the pulse of what was happening in that realm. The chamber was actively involved as well. And so their small businesses, I keep saying this, I am so proud of our local banks, because I would say out of all the interviews we conducted regarding PPP, more than 50% of our local businesses received their PPP through our local banks. The Wells Fargos and the Chases and that money went out the door, and it went in Los Angeles, in these big metro markets. And so our local banks really were a lifeline to a lot of these companies, and they stepped up. They were working around the clock. They were working 24 hours on the weekends to make sure these loans were done and they were submitted and that these people got their funds. So it was incredible, the effort that went into this. It was just incredible, and kudos to our local banks. I'm just so proud. And I can't say that our major banks didn't step up, because some did, but a lot of them had to go outside of our market to get that help. Locally, they were hamstringed. They didn't have the ability to help here at the local level. So it did pay off to have a relationship with our local banks.
Yeah, and sometimes you just have to serve as a link. You don't have to actually get it done and do it. And you just, sometimes as a clearinghouse of information, you get people to the right places. I always believe that if you can't solve the problem, the best you can do is send them to someone that can. And that is, to me, a critical service that a lot of people provide. Most of it is communication or the contact person or whomever, but people need to have that assistance. Businesses need to have that assistance. People, I think, the government's trying to take care of people directly, but businesses have to go through a process. And a lot of the small businesses just don't have the capacity to go through a process on their own. or they're so overwhelmed with their problems and issues that sometimes they lose the drive to get some of this stuff done.
Right,
So
they give up.
They give up.
Exactly. And that portal, that's why that portal was so popular, because that portal was a clearinghouse of information. And we did partner with the Arizona Commerce Authority, the Chamber, and we held Zoom meetings with speakers explaining step by step. And we would get up to 200 people at those lunch and learns on Zoom about the PPP program. So I know we were touching a lot. I just, like you said, it's really hard to follow up with all of it and know how successful everybody was. But
yeah, sometimes it feels overwhelming.
Today's one of those days.
Yeah.
I told my staff last night, I said, I really wish this county presentation was next week, because I think I would be able to step back up. But right now, I'm just so gutted. I want to cry. I just feel like
you're back into some familiar, territory, and we do appreciate what you do. Well, I don't personally measure it in terms of every time you go out, you get success. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 tries before you make it. So, as probably the oldest serving member here of this board, I can tell you that there's something to be said for patience. You seem to have understood the value of that. So just keep doing it. You guys are doing a great job. Sometimes you don't get enough pats in the back, but this isn't the time. This is a time where you find the drive somewhere and then you keep going. And, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and it isn't a train coming. It's normally something positive is going to happen. So thank you very much for everything you guys do, and hopefully we'll see success in a few of these projects, and there will be enough to prove just how worthy you are, all the praises that we give you. Okay?
Thank you for your continued support, and thank you for your continued support. We can't do it without our partners, so thank you.
All right, thank you, Julie. That ends the presentations that we have, I think. Yeah, that's right. So the next item on the agenda is a consent calendar. The consent calendar is where the items are listed and will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. I have 10 consent items. Does any board member want to pull any of them out for discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to go ahead and approve them as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion to accept as presented.
Supervisor Lyons makes a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Then seconded by Supervisor Porchas. So the motion for the consent calendar to be approved, it's been done. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. There's no items for discussion. So after that, we'll move into number 1, which I think I was told the health department representative was here. It's our action item, and it's pretty broad. So I think I saw her, the director, Diana, try to come in at a particular time, but I think she saw the location was full. Is she somewhere in the building? She was here. Yeah. Would you like to go ahead with the legislative update? Well, let's just find out, because I think some of the stuff that's going to be in the legislative update, it's going to be related a little bit. At least I wanted to talk a little bit about some legislation that applies to what's going on in Yuma County. But there's Tony. So, yeah, we can go into the legislative update. They may tie into what we're talking about anyway. So I'm going to continue this item on the health district and emergency management and move on to the discussion regarding legislative issues, okay? So let's begin with that. These are discussion and possible action regarding the following legislative items. There will be a report to the Board of Supervisors regarding proposed bills in the Arizona State Legislature with impact to Yuma County, and an update regarding strategies relating to federal legislative priorities, which should tie into what's happening at the CSA at the national level. Go ahead and present.
Thank you, Chairman Reyes. Members of the board, Ian McGahey, Deputy County Administrator. Here's an update on a few items. There we go. What had started slowly this legislative session has picked up rapidly. There are currently more than 1,700 bills in the 2 chambers, making a record for the number of new bills in the legislative session. This week is the last week to hear bills in committee in the Chamber of Origin, with the exception of the House and Senate Appropriations Committee, which gets another week. Then there are 4 weeks to hear bills in the opposite chamber. One standout is the large numbers of election-related bills included in all the bills introduced this session. I'll summarize a few bills of note. I should note that all of the following election-related bills have been opposed by the Arizona Association of Counties, ACO. Start with HB 2800. This provides that the legislature would have absolute authority over elections. There would be an automatic special session that starts the day of each primary and general election. It does not need the governor to call the session. And the legislature may vote to reject or confirm preliminary election results. 2016 and SB 1444, these bills are essentially identical, and there are a number of bills that are similar or identical throughout both chambers. This would require that the legislature is provided with access to all election data before the Board of Supervisors can canvass an election. HB 2369, this bill would require that voters have their signature notarized on early ballot envelopes and to show identification when dropping off early ballots. On the Senate side, SB 1503 would prohibit returning early ballots by mail and require that early ballots are dropped off in person. SB 1069 states that if a voter misses 2 primary and 2 general elections in a row, that's 4 elections total, then the county would send the voter a notice. The voter would have 30 days to confirm in writing that they want to stay on the permanent early voting list. If the voter does not confirm, they are removed from the permanent early voting list. HB 2720, this one is interesting. Any disruption in the live video coverage of the custody of all ballots while the ballots are present in a tabulation room in the counting center will result in the members of the Board of Supervisors and the county recorder being deemed ineligible for re-election and barred from holding any public office in Arizona for 10 years after the expiration of the term of office in which the disruption of video coverage occurred. That one has not been assigned to committee yet as of yesterday, so all the others are moving through the process. This one seems to have stalled, at least as of yesterday. A few other election-related bills worth noting. SB 1241, that would require electronic voting systems to have printed valid confirmation receipts. HB 2378, sponsored by Tim Dunn. This bill would introduce ranked choice voting in presidential elections, so not winner take all, kind of like what Maine does. SB 1613 and SB 1638, these bills would require that all election supplies and equipment are made in America. SB 1616, this bill would prohibit internet access for all equipment at the polls and tabulation equipment. SB 1010, SB 1083, and 1240. These bills each propose various changes to hand count, recount percentages, thresholds, and procedures. I won't go into detail on all those. HB 2722 forces counties away from the vote center method, which is what we, of course, use here in Yuma County, moving them away from vote centers to precinct-based voting, as well as allows for emergency centers only in a time of war or natural disaster, and allows for photos of election workers inside the 75-foot limit. Again, ACO is opposed to all these bills. So non-elections, yes, sir.
Before you leave that election section, because obviously you're going to move through that, I hope that some common sense prevails. This is one of those knee-jerk reactions that is typical of when something happens that the legislature is not happy with. As a gentle reminder, you know, this is a situation that you may get what you wish for and then regret it later. Because if you get to a point where you let the legislature make all those decisions, and the legislature that passes these bills are not the ones that are going to make good on them, you may have given the other party control of an election process. I don't know if anybody ever thinks about that when they're doing that. I know that at the federal level, you know, we had that happen with appointments, you know, judge appointments, you know, the rule, the Senate rule that required 60 votes to break a filibuster was changed so that we can get appointments. So now that shifts over to the other party, and then, you know, this is not, I mean, I know that you know, passing bills like this in a situation like that what we're experiencing right now, it's probably the worst thing that can happen. And I hope everybody goes back to understanding that this process that we have of elections has been developed over many, many, many years. It's not something that you want to mess with in a situation where you have a heated discussion about, the process and so forth. People need to remain calm at least for a while and just simply understand that whatever they do today may not be necessarily, they may have to be dealing with it in some other time. I just hope that all of us can get in touch with our legislators and just tell them, just cool off your heels, because what you're doing right now may change in a way that you don't really want to. I just want to make that point because I know we see all this, and some of the bills are not necessarily negative in context. They're just bills that want to do something specific that my belief is some of them have a point, but the ones that want to change everything so that all the power is in the legislators' hands assumes that the power will continue to be in those particular hands. That may not be the case, as is proven in other places. The power shifts, and when it shifts, you've just given the other side the ability to do exactly what you want to do to them. So it's not really, I don't have any other way of saying that, although I hope just that some common sense prevails and everybody gets a chance to cool off a little bit and actually legislate with a common sense approach, not a sort of, this happened and I got to fix it now. Yeah. Well, I just wanted to make that point. It's just so difficult for me to see like 50 bills trying to solve a problem that I can understand, but you may not be necessarily solving a problem. You may be creating another one. Supervisor Lyons.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to commend Robin Fouquet and our elections department here in Yuma County for the process that they've put together, where we didn't have any questions of irregularities. But there are many people throughout the state that have that question, have that doubt, that don't have that confidence in the system that's set up in their individual counties. Robin's provided good insight to the other counties as far as what works well and what doesn't work well. And I think that she has done an amazing job. It would be nice for the rest of the residents of Arizona to have that same confidence. Otherwise, they feel, and I hate to use the word, but disenfranchised, and they don't have confidence that their vote counts. So safeguarding the system is critical.
But you see, yes, Supervisor Lyons, and I believe that part of that comes out of Maricopa County, which is always the focus of everything. But let's just go through, if we don't want to go through the history of that, but the history of that is that you had a, quote, Democratic person in charge of elections. You now have a Republican in charge of elections. So this is kind of like, okay, if we could do a best practices situation where we would agree this is good practice and have a situation. Yuma County, it could be a great example of how you do things and avoid all this trouble. Changing the law to shift the authority into a legislative body that can change over, very short periods of time. They get elected or re-elected every 2 years. It's not, I hope some people can see that those kind of changes could be detrimental to what they're trying to accomplish and actually turn out to be a nightmare. It's one of those situations where we keep telling people, be careful what you wish for, because you just may get it. And if you want to make changes, then find the Yuma County, find a recorder that does it well, and then see if you can, match that or do that. That would be what we would suggest to everybody that's involved in this process is, look, there are some examples in the state of places where the elections were run in a less confrontational, less controversial way. This is basically, and if I continue with this trend, this is basically a Democratic-dominated board that is basically given the Republican county recorder the ability to conduct an election without interfering. That should be the way it's done. Elections shouldn't be at the whim of either the supervisors or the legislature. They should be conducted to satisfy the public's need for fairness. That should be the driver. And then that's the statement. That's the last statement I think.
Well said.
All right, so we're going to go on, otherwise we're stuck in there.
Okay, I'll move on to some non-election related bills discussed by the CSA Legislative Policy Committee on Friday. HB 2437 would increase taxes on hybrid and electric vehicle owners and would serve as a direct increase in HERF revenues. LPC voted to support this bill. There is the gas tax bill also moving through the process. My understanding is it takes 2/3 vote of the state legislature to raise taxes in Arizona, so not an easy thing to do. HB 2808 is sponsored by Representative Osborne and is in line with the governor's initiative to expand broadband in rural areas, making available $10 million in grants. LPC supports that bill. Senate Bill 1467 would double the annual contribution of the state for EORP. That's the elected officials' retirement plan, from $5 million to $10 million, increasing by $1 million over the next 5 years. So this would help to offset the anticipated increase in required employer contributions to EORP over the next several years. LPC voted to support that bill. And SB 1498 would increase the number of members of the Board of Supervisors from 5 to 7 in Pima County and 5 to 9 in Maricopa County.
That's going to make it better.
The LPC voted to oppose this bill, noting the additional cost and stating that decisions like that are better left to the voters. We had scheduled a meeting with our local state representatives for Monday, the 22nd. However, due to scheduling conflicts, it's very busy at the legislature, as you know right now. They've asked to move that. So we're looking at Friday, February 18th at 3 p.m. I've heard from 3 of our legislators that should work. Just making sure it's okay with you. It would be a virtual meeting. And if you would like some topics pre-identified or kind of keep it general and open, I guess maybe I'm looking for a little direction. But right now it's scheduled for Friday at 3 p.m. And it'll just be general discussion, and we can prepare some general topics after the agenda is posted.
All right. I think that we need to, because of time constraints, I mean, we don't want to stay, we don't want to make it hours long. We need to, I like the other supervisors, if they've got something that they consider, of major interest that we need to get into, to make sure we let you know so that it's included in the agenda. I don't really like an open-ended agenda that, simply we get into, well, look, it's my belief that each one of them support us in general. But when we get into specific bills, we may have a situation where some people support that and other people oppose that. And that is not what we want to get into in a meeting like this. What we're going to get into in a meeting like this are things like broadband support, those kind of things, and to make sure that they understand, what our needs are in reality, as opposed to some sort of a conceptual idea that some people have. I don't know what 10 million, I don't know if they realize what $10 million would do for broadband access in all rural counties in the state of Arizona. But I can tell you right now, it probably would do enough for Yuma. And those kind of discussions, I think we need to focus on maybe 5 main issues that we want to talk to them. And if we have some extra time after that, then we can get general. I think election discussions are not going to get us too far. So, things that they can support, that we can explain and offer our assistance if need be, to help, get them through. Those are the things I think we need to focus on. So, if you guys have any ideas or any questions you want, we may want to put them up in front of Ian so he can put them in the agenda, so it's not like a general discussion that comes up, like, what do you guys think, that type of thing, but more, okay, we want to talk about this, we want to talk about this and this. So we prioritize what our needs are, and we try to get them to be, I go back to when you're trying to get some support for her, for example, and you make it a general thing. Or that bill that has to do with DPS, controlling the enforcement, 5 miles towards the border. Those type of things I think are pretty specific, and if I was being asked, I would say that that's one of those things that will impact all border areas. But in Yuma County, and in Yuma County specifically, we've had this issue of who's in charge, and we've had this discussion at the federal level, but we've been united in the state level, all border crossings. And that, to me, is one of those issues that, for example, I would suggest we put up and say, don't do that. Okay?
Great.
All right, 3 p.m. Friday.
Almost there, sir. I think 2 more slides. Just shifting briefly to the federal side of things. The House Committee on Government Oversight and Reform has begun looking at the state and local government recovery package that was proposed by the President. and the Democratic majority in the U.S. House and Senate. A pretty sizable amount of resources are potentially planned for state, local, territorial, and tribal governments. It's a $350 billion package in total, including $195 million for states and $65 million for municipalities. You'll see at the bottom of this slide also $65 billion for counties. So based on population modeling, Arizona would get $1.4 billion. And you can see those county funds broken down on the right-hand side, with Yuma County receiving nearly $42 million in funds if this program were to be enacted. Final slide, like the coronavirus relief package from last year, this bill outlines permissible uses and how the Treasury would distribute those funds. So as it stands now, the funds could be used in 4 ways: to respond to or mitigate the COVID-19 public health emergency or its negative economic impacts, cover costs incurred as a result of the COVID-19 emergency, replace lost revenue as a result of the COVID-19 emergency, and address negative economic impacts of the COVID-19 disease. So those are, of course, much broader than the initial coronavirus relief package that was part of the CARES Act of last year. Also different is that these funds would be distributed directly from the U.S. Treasury. Treasury would require certification of the need for the federal assistance to carry out the specified activities, and also to certify that the funds would, of course, be used for the items, the 4 different items mentioned. So NACO has indicated that a jurisdiction does not need to apply for funding if it felt that it did not need it, or a jurisdiction could apply for a partial or smaller amount than the total that's indicated. So this is all still being negotiated, and anything can happen and probably will, but it's something we'll certainly keep an eye on.
Okay,
That's my report.
yeah, that's going to be interesting, because I don't know if, with the PPP, I think there's now there's some restrictions, right? You have to have lost so much in a quarter, that kind of thing. So for us, it'd be difficult after all the press that we have gotten over the fact that our economic situation is pretty decent, to say the least, to go ahead and apply that. I know I'm starting to sound like a Republican, but it truly is a situation where I don't know, yet how we would find justification to apply for $41 million and actually do it with a straight face. But I mean, there might be something somebody creative can come up with, that we have lost that much money somewhere, or that we need that much money to continue operations. I just can't see it right now. But it's, again, I'm not saying that we won't need some for something specific. We got issues that we're getting into, like migration issues that may, or the COVID situation can get worse. There's so many things that are unknown at this particular point in time. I do like the fact that this won't be filtered through the state, because then it puts us in a situation where the state really makes the decision, like vaccine distribution, things like that are really difficult for us to deal with, because we're a very different county. And I try to explain that, and I think the governor's office and everybody understands the fact that we don't have like a stable population count that you can actually, it's not the census count that matters to us. It's the winter count that matters to us. And, it's so different. And to make people understand how a county can grow 50%, 60% in a month is really difficult to explain between farm worker populations and the winter resident populations. This county grows by at least 50%, but we don't get that sort of revenue. We get the economic, part of it, and it's not that much anymore because of the situation with COVID. But it's just a different situation to explain, and I don't think we need to get into that. It does look like the bill, the CARES bill, whatever they call it, the Federal Recovery Act or something, it's moving pretty much through the system. So it's, in all likelihood, there will be something. I'm not sure it's going to be this much, or I'm not sure this is the way it's going to look, but I think we ought to get prepared for it, one way or another. So thank you very much, Ian, for the report. Are there any more questions or comments to Ian? No? Thank you, Ian. Thank you. And now, in a starring, I'm just kidding. We have the presentation by the County Health Department and Emergency Management on the situation with COVID in Yuma County. Now, just to, if you haven't been watching us from the beginning, there was a gentleman at the beginning of the presentation that came in with a sort of a mixed comment. First, he was grateful that he was able to get his COVID second dose. He mentioned Supervisor Lyons and Kevin Tonnell as part of that. He was a former employee of Yuma County, Mike Perry, I think. And so he, I think, summarized what I think we have, a situation where, you know, the way we're handling it's appreciated by the people who know what it takes to handle that. And then we have the general population response to the fact that there's almost no way to take care of everybody that needs to be taken care of. So that's not a very good way to start a presentation, but I did want you to know that that is how I think most people perceive the way we're doing things in Yuma County. They're grateful if they can, and they're very, very, let's put it in a very diplomatic way, they're very upset that they can't get it when they want it and how they want it. And I think it's going to be a problem that we're going to be dealing with for a while. Who's going to come up first, Tony or Tony? Okay, Tony.
I got a couple things I wanted to discuss, and one of them ties into what you're talking about. Tomorrow I will be meeting with the AZDMA staff. They'll be flying in along with Dr. Colonel Tomer Liebert, State Surgeon, and the CEO of ASU Research Enterprises. We're going to go out and do some site surveys. They're wanting to bring, when the shots become available, the vaccines become available, a state-run vaccination opportunity for Yuma County. They want to probably operate 7 days a week, anywhere from 10 to 12 hours a day. And so we're going to go out and look at several sites, try to determine if that's going to be, it may be a month down the road, maybe 2 months down the road, but when they become the vaccines, and I'm sure Diana can probably talk about when they expect that to happen. So that'll be tomorrow. We are working with ASU. Originally, they wanted to switch over to the vaccination process, but I still tell them testing is very important. So we're trying to push them to do a vaccination on the 27th of this month. I mean, excuse me, not vaccination, testing on the 27th of this month, and that's another thing we'll be discussing tomorrow as well, trying to get that set up. We're trying to partner with AWC, maybe the AWC take that over, maybe do it 1 or 2 days a week on a regular basis, but hadn't heard a word yesterday. I guess there might have been a board meeting or something. They were waiting for some results on that. So I should have more information at the next board meeting and lock in those dates as we can. And I understand the gentleman's offered to volunteer and things like that. Obviously, you know, I have a CERT program. He's more than welcome. If you give me his information, I'm more welcome to reach out to him and give him at least that opportunity to see if he wants to be involved in that. And I'll turn it over to Diana for.
No, before you leave, Tony, a couple of things. I need you to remain throughout this process because I want to talk briefly, if we can, about the migrant situation. And I think you need to be here for that.
Okay.
And second, the part that I think is missing sometimes when we talk about testing is the tracing part. And I think people have not focused enough on the tracing part, which is what the testing is supposed to do. It's supposed to identify people that you want to trace. And it's a very critical part of the distribution of this situation, not the vaccine, but the actual spread of the virus. It is the tracing part that I'm really concerned if we don't do enough testing that matters to me. If we don't do testing and locate people who are positive, we have no way to actually identify that individual and follow through and see who has been in contact. It is to me, it's a very critical part that is missing when we get into a situation that people don't go get tested unless they feel sick. Right. That, we need to continue emphasizing in the community that testing it's more of a tracing issue anymore. There seems to be better treatment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But tracing is a critical part of testing. It's not just identifying who has it so that they know. It's also so we know, when and where some of these situations are developing. So, I need to send that message to the community. They need to continue tracing, strongly tracing, even if we, it's like if we don't test, there's no sickness. That's not the point. The point is if we don't test, we will not know, how the community is actually, what shape the community is in.
I totally agree with you. There's a lot of testing opportunities going on daily. I mean, if you go to our county website, they'll list all the different places that are doing testing. So those opportunities are there. We did the test a while back and we did over 400 tests. If we have 2 people test positive, those two people we were able to identify, and then Diana's department was able to do the tracing.
Yeah.
So it's just important to go through that process, because I'm sure there was a couple people who went through that testing, didn't know they had COVID, and they came back going, oh, I
Well,
haven't.
you know, that's another thing that's missing on the community is the information that you could actually have this virus and not feel anything. You know, in other words, you could be a spreader person or a spreader and not know it. So, you know, how are you going to know it if you don't get tested? So it's really important. The message that we give out in the community is that testing continues to be an important part of our fight against this virus. You know, we need people to continue getting tested. And we need to remember that the fact that you tested last week doesn't mean you're virus free this week. You know, it's an incubation period. It's a process that I think we need to keep emphasizing to people. Get tested when you can, even if you don't feel like you're sick. It's a good way of knowing that you're not at the point that you get tested, and it's a point in time. So continuing testing is something that we need to get used to as a community, and I think it's healthy for us to emphasize that the idea is for not just you to know that you have it, but for you to protect other people from it if you do, and us to be able to tell you, look, quarantine, do something about it. Because, I mean, people show up to work, they don't know they have it, they interact with a bunch of people in the office, and pretty soon we've got a hot spot. All right, thank you, Tony.
I have
wait a
a
minute.
question, Tony. When you're talking about sites, are you just looking for one site or for the whole Yuma County, or is there gonna be several sites?
The state itself wants to run a site, kind of like they did in Phoenix, but on a smaller scale than what they're doing at stadium, and they're doing a couple of the stadiums. They want to do that, but I think they want to pick a specific location. But doesn't mean they could move it around, but it's just going to take some logistics on it. I can talk to them about that as well. Looking more towards eastern part of the county, I mean towards AWC out that area. That's one of the sites they wanted to look at. They also talked about partnering maybe with some of the medical facilities and maybe just providing the funding for it. But I'll know a lot more tomorrow once we go out and do some site surveys and find out what else they need to make this happen, and then what their expectation is when Arizona's going to get a larger dose of vaccines to be able to push those out. So,
Supervisor Line?
The limitation on the state-run vaccine is that it's Pfizer, and it requires some storage, minimum storage requirements that so far we can't meet in the county for transportation, for storage. And so from what I understand, one site where they can provide that type of equipment, where it's got to be kept, Diana, negative what?
Talk about it.
Right.
It's significant. There's some logistical problems, so they would start with one, and that's what we've been advocating for, and then to be able to expand it from there. But there are some limitations.
So whether it's going to be Pfizer or if it's going to be Moderna, if that's what they're planning on doing, maybe plan on doing that. I know they're looking at doing this in Yavapai County as well. And they went last week to visit Yavapai County on that as well. So we'll find out more tomorrow.
All right. But the more opportunities, you know, if you come up, Mrs. Gomez, the fact is, if what we read is right, the federal government is sending even more supplies, but they're not necessarily sending them to the state to be distributed. They're sending them directly to, you know, Walmart and all those, you know, Rite Aid and all those community accessible, you know, locations. It's a good idea, but that leaves the implementation to people we have no control over at all. They could be doing one or two, or they could be doing 200 at a time. I don't hear clinics being put out by Walmart or by, you know, Walgreens, excuse me, or by Rite Aid. They're not doing, as far as I know, clinics. So it's difficult for me to see how you send 1,000 doses to basically a retail you know, place without having a massive campaign to get people to go to those places to get it. So it's still, I mean, there's some fine tuning I think needs to be done unless we don't know enough, and that's what we have you here for. So,
good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board, Diana Gomez, Director of Public Health. So a quick vaccine update. So yes, to your point, there are more locations that are offering vaccine now. In addition to our county allocation, there's a retail pharmacy program that is done in conjunction with the federal government, and they receive a direct allocation. And this includes some pharmacies like Walgreens and CVS. As you remember previously, actually a few months ago, we were talking about vaccinating the people in the assisted nursing facilities and the nursing homes, and that was the CDC partnership with Walgreens and CVS. As that process continues and starts to wrap up because people are getting their second doses and we're covering that, that's expected to free up vaccine that will no longer be needed for that purpose that can then be repurposed for use in retail pharmacies. So again, that's the CDC Partnership Retail Program, and that's a direct allocation. In addition to that, the state has a smaller version of that, which is where they receive vaccine directly from the state. And so we're looking at maybe Kroger's, which is the Fry stores, and Albertsons. So if you go to the Find My Vaccine website, you'll see that there's a number of pharmacies listed on there. There's also our community clinics. When we get our allocation, we share the county allocation with our community partners. We want to make sure we said it from the very beginning. We want to make sure that there's equitable access, which is why, again, having that ability to allocate to those, smaller pods or to those partners that can distribute the vaccine is important. So sometimes I get an email from somebody that said, we couldn't get the vaccine at the county, but we were able to get it at YMC. They don't realize it comes from the same place, and that was a very deliberate partnership to make sure that there's multiple points of administration and multiple points of accessibility. And so, you've heard me talk about some of the, partners like Sunset, the federally qualified health centers that are also key partners in making sure, because they have clinics throughout the county. So the newest announcement is that federally qualified health centers like Sunset will also be getting a direct allocation from the federal government, which is good news for us because that's above the allocation that we would get at a county level. The first round, the program went live last week, and at that point, no federally qualified health centers in Arizona had received any vaccine. That's expected to change next week. I believe there was 4 that were identified in Arizona. We don't know which 4 those are, but that program will continue to expand. And so as those entities, those clinics that have sites throughout the county get a direct allocation, pharmacies continue to get an allocation, and then hopefully we have an increase as well, then we are looking at the probability of being able to expand those pods and being able to operate a pod similar to what was described that would run for maybe 7 days a week for 12 hours, but still retain some sort of local allocation to be able to ensure that we have those pods, similar to what we've hosted in the city, in South County. And again, all these registration sites have their own individual process to register, but we have to be really conscious of the fact that a lot of them rely on technology. So the use of, you have to have an email address, you have to register online. And so that's why having multiple options or being able to have these smaller pods where we can work with community partners that serve the elderly or people that might not have a phone or email is important. And so having that level of control and being able to partner with those agencies that serve the most vulnerable people in our community is going to continue to be a priority in our community. You might have followed the news and you might have seen that there's obviously the inclement weather, especially in the Midwest. So that is causing some delays in the vaccine that we were allocated last week. Normally vaccine ships on Mondays. Because of the holiday, we knew that that wouldn't happen. But then again, Tuesday, nothing was shipped because of the weather. And so there's still some delay. We're hoping to be able to maybe receive it tomorrow or Friday. We generally at the county health department do not open our registration process until we have vaccine on hand. That prevents us from having to cancel appointments. We did allocate the majority of our vaccine out. So that might impact some of our partners that might have preemptively scheduled those vaccine appointments expecting that shipment. So it's important that people just verify with whatever provider they have to make sure. So again, that's kind of the hiccups that you work with. We don't get a consistent notice every week saying, you're going to be getting this much vaccine. So it's really hard to plan. It's a different number every week. For planning purposes, it makes it difficult. The only thing that we know consistently on our end is that we need to make sure that that vaccine is administered almost as quickly as we get it so that we maintain those numbers, that the data is entered so that we can reflect that it's been administered, so that we can continue to show that we have the infrastructure in place and the ability to move the vaccine so that when more supply becomes available, we can hopefully continue to advocate for additional supplies. So on the vaccine front, that's it. Or that's some of the news. Yes, sir.
No, the capacity, the ability to store.
Yes.
You have that availability to yeah, available to you, right? I mean, you can store a few thousand doses if you needed to at the right temperature.
Right, we just don't, yeah, so the move has just been to just push it out as soon as possible because we don't have it in freezers.
Are you talking about the difference between the two different
Oh,
vaccines?
no, I know that the Pfizer vaccine is specific
Yeah,
in that it's a very ultra low storage issue. I mean, it's ultra low, meaning it's like minus 90 or something like that. While the Moderna vaccine, which is the one that's widely used in this county, it's more of a regular type minus 10, minus 20, which any freezer, good freezer, can get down to. I guess your response to that is we don't need that much storage capacity. We distribute it pretty quickly.
Right.
You know, so that we don't get to store it for like a week or so, that we need some cold storage. My question had more to do with the fact that sometimes you do have to have a plan B, and that's why Tony, I think it's critical for me to Tony listen to that, because part of being ready in an emergency is being able to stockpile if you need to, because you can't distribute. I mean, we don't have those kind of issues here. I mean, we don't get snowed in, we get sand in or something like that. So we don't really have those kind of issues. In other places, they need to be in a situation where if they get it and can't place it on people's arms, they need to store it somewhere. That to me is like a plan B situation for us here. It's not a plan A. Plan A is you get it, you distribute it to the partners, you do clinics as fast as you can to get it out in people's arms, which is what we focus on, really. I mean, there's a lot of controversies that come with that sometimes, but at the end of the day, the idea is to get, group A, 1A, 1B, and 65 and so forth. You have a protocol that you need, that you like to follow, congregate settings. I think I've gotten too familiar with that. But the point is that, what makes most of these issues controversial, Mrs. Gomez, is the actual level of need in the community and the actual supply that we get. As more supply becomes available and people have more options, I'm sure that the number will decrease. And as you apply more and more vaccines to people, there will be less people that are uncomfortable. And that's another issue that I think I brought earlier when I said that in Yuma County, what we get is a large number of people who will meet that 65 and older because of a retirement community type of setup, where you get a lot of people that are coming in from other from other parts of the country to basically spend the winter here that all qualify. Right. So that it's been a big issue for me with the local folks, complaining, well, the plates that we get are all from out of, state and so on and so forth. And then we have a proximity to the border with Mexico, which creates another level of controversy. Every time that somebody tries to come to this country and get vaccinated, it raises red flags. It's always going to be that way. And I just wanted to make sure that it's always going to be that way as long as the supply is less than the demand. That's what I mean. Yes.
It's a supply issue, and we definitely, our 1B group, which is the group that includes the 65 and over, we have a large law enforcement presence because our proximity to the border. Again, the eligibility, our educators. So our 1B group, the population increases, like you said, almost doubles. So we have a way to go, and until that supply increases, it trickles down. And I understand the frustration. And there's when I get those phone calls and those emails and people are upset, I totally relate to that. I relate to the frustration and the advocacy that's going on behind the scenes to try to procure. I mean, because you've written letters and been very supportive in an effort to get more vaccine down here. And on our end, the part we take very personally is when we get the vaccine, we make sure it's safeguarded well. We make sure, we have a temperature control system, we have backup we have everything to safeguard it when it's here. That's our baby. And then push it out and share it with multiple partners so that we have the ability at the health department to run clinics and just administer the vaccine. But it's important for us that we distribute it and we work with those community agents and those partners in the different parts of the county so that people have different opportunities. That way, instead of scheduling over a week, you have all those people that it's a simultaneous effort at all those sites to vaccinate people. And so, yes, we go through the vaccine really, really fast. And so that's the good part. And we haven't experienced the level of vaccine hesitancy that other places have seen. People want the vaccine. It's a good problem to have. Now we just need to procure the supply.
Yeah, we have a lot of old people, including myself. I don't want to, specify how old, but we have a lot of those 1B, 65 and older in this community. Way over more, in a percentage situation, they're way over more than in a normal, stable all the time residency situation. Here we have winter visitors, and they're very high percentage 65 and older, which makes that even, that problem of supply even worse. It's not only a seasonal type problem, but it's always a controversial type problem because they're from Michigan, or they're from Oregon, or from Washington, or from other places, and people here, the local folks here, just feel like, what's going on? We can't get a vaccine, but somebody else is getting it that is not even from here. And I do want to emphasize that our goal is to vaccinate as many people as possible. This is a federal program. It is not a local state program. The vaccine program is a federal program. We can't tell someone that meets the 65 years and older, or has a chronic, or is in a nursing home, no, you can't get it because you're not local. And it's been the toughest thing to try to explain to local people. We can't not, be restricted that way. We have to apply the vaccine to people who qualify. That is the biggest thing. You have to sort of get into that qualification area, and that's where there's a little bit of leeway, but not much.
Right,
So,
and our community is our community, and it's very diverse, and that's what makes our community great. And so again, that's where that partnership and making sure that we're equitable and we have equitable opportunities for people to access the vaccine. For example, the portal. The portal is very difficult to navigate. It's only available in English. Even if there was a Spanish version, it still has the same issues. So having those different opportunities, or partnering with agencies to make sure that we can get people registered, so that things like not having internet or living in certain parts of a county are not, barriers to receiving your vaccine. So, but when you are only getting 3,000 doses, 4,000 doses, and you're dealing with a population right now that's double what our normal census data is, it goes very, very slow. Definitely not at the speed that we would have liked. So we're just hopeful that as vaccine becomes more plentiful, we have the infrastructure in place, we've shown it, we have those clinics, and part of that, having those partnerships with those other clinics, is everybody's warmed up and ready to go. So as volume increases, you just increase the hours of operation, you just increase the days that it's available, but everybody's had plenty of practice with the system so far.
sure. Supervisor Lyons, and then Supervisor Summers.
I just had a question on, has the government looked at what's going on in the country right now as far as the storms that are hitting the Mideast and the East, where you have power outages all over the place, you've got people that cannot get out, and they're stuck at home with the weather conditions. Have they looked at transferring some of that that can't be utilized right now due to the storms that they're catching? And I feel sorry for them, but shifting it out to places like out here where we can get it out and get it used.
So the honest answer to that is, I don't know, that would make sense, but I think right now everything's kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Even our very small allocation, I don't think right now anything can move through. And so some of the concerns are, where is that vaccine, and does it need, because it needs to be packaged, even the flexible one, a certain way. So tracking those shipments and making sure that we have eyes on them and where they're at, and do they need to be repackaged to make sure they get to their destination safely. So those are all, those are all considerations that keep public health officials awake at night, wondering about, and we have no way of knowing that. But yeah, shifting, that's kind of like the idea, what you referenced was kind of like the idea of making a lot of this transparent and public, who's administering what, because that was the idea behind that. If you're not moving the vaccine fast enough, then we can shift those patterns of allocation. So, but when the whole middle of, the United States is
frozen,
experiencing, it's difficult.
Supervisor Lyons?
How are we doing on reporting?
Yeah,
that's an important, that's a very important point.
We all know what happens when you're not reporting correctly.
Are we still the highest in the state?
Are we? Oh, I don't know about
Okay.
that. But we're up there. I think it started, the reporting across the board got very well across the state. And so I think you started something.
Well, I did mention that on the supervisor call with NACO, that the reporting was critical, and that the other boards of supervisors, after having been asked by the chairman to follow up on that, mentioned that to several of the other supervisors. So I think that across the state, they started to ask for reporting.
Yeah, if you look across the board, the percentage rates immediately got improved across. And I think those are one of those things that people need to be conscious of. There's so many moving parts, but entering into the system shows that your inventory is depleted. And so doing that on a consistent basis within the 24 hours is important because it reflects your ability to just manage. When you're asking for more vaccine, that's part of your overall efficiency. You're saying, look, we can do this, we can report it, please give us more. So it's just part of the overall responsibility.
I did hear one comment, though, to the back channels that we still need to emphasize, and we can't emphasize it enough, that people must administer the vaccine within the tiers. Yes. Without exception, period.
That's a tougher one, I know.
We
'cause
continue
I've
to
seen what
follow up
happens.
on.
Yeah, well, we're asking people, and that's, to me, that sometimes become an issue. We're asking people to apply a vaccine that once you open up, has to be used. I mean, it's kind of like, okay, so you go to a location, you have 30 or 40 people to vaccinate, and you open up 4 vials, and the other ones, there's 5 doses left. So you got to put them in somebody's arm. So, that sometimes becomes controversial. The other part that becomes controversial is when you go to a location and other people are lining up.
Right.
So that's the difference.
And that's where we found the abuse.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
so there's a
And
very distinct
I think
difference between not wasting
that's
vaccine,
right.
because we said from the very beginning, we're not going to do that. And so if that requires vaccinating at a tier, then that's what we need to do to not waste it, and having a private
and
event.
when you have a partner that, and I complain about that, when you have a partner that is following a vaccination procedure that requires they vaccinate their own customers first, like a clinic, where you're saying, okay, well, vaccinate your customers first, and they don't have a clinic open to the public. In other words, they don't have a process that anyone just can come in. You start thinking, well, it's going to take them forever to get through that process before they begin. You want your partners to know that the dosages that you give them need to be applied fast. But you're also telling them, boy, stay within this lane, right? And, they sometimes, I understand that. I understand the controversy behind vaccinating people who aren't 65. But then you get into medical issues, right? You have people with diabetes, you have people with high blood pressure, you have people with cancer, you have people with heart conditions that haven't left their homes in 6 months. And so they're asking, okay, I know it's 1B and I know it's 65 and older, but, I have this heart condition and I can't get out and I'm 64, right? I'm 63. And then you start, dealing with that. And I can tell you this from personal experience. You have done a great job of outreach to the outlying communities in South County. We all know that the 80% of the people who die are 65 years and older. I mean, it's not 80% of people who get infected, it's people who die. And we know that a lot of those people are Hispanics, maybe because we don't have a large colored population here. I'm talking about black population. So we have a large Hispanic population, especially in South County. I'm very appreciative, and I know Supervisor Borges can attest to this, that the county has made an effort to get the vaccine out to them. Because of the cultural difficulties of getting in touch, going through the portal, it really seems to me that the health department, and I want to make this public, bends over backward to accommodate the fact that some of these people can't reach us. So you're reaching them. That I appreciate, and I want to make it public. And it's not, and the problem is, you can't please everyone. So you have this, and somebody says, well, why not in East County, right? And so we go into this process where everybody needs to understand the purpose. And as far as I'm concerned, that is the purpose of vaccination, to get it out to as many people as possible within the protocols. And that's what I'm sure that Supervisor Lyons refers to. Within the protocols. Once you get out of the protocols in a way that seems abusive, not in an exception kind of situation, but in a sort of a rule, then you get into these issues about, hey, wait a minute, okay? And that's really where the line, I think, is drawn. It's drawn whether you choose to do it, whether you have to do it. And I think that is a line that it's very difficult to walk for you, for the health department. So the reporting issue is where it comes really into play. You have to report it. And when you report it, you have to have a document that proves who you put it into, and it gives us a better sense, I think, of who is getting vaccinated. And it allows for control. That is basically, at the end of the day, what we certainly like to do, right? The partners need somebody to control them from going out of the lane and then causing more problems. And I think that some of the supervisors here, specifically Supervisor Lyons, it's been very active in how would I say it, in advancing the process for Yuma County at a state level. And we want to tell you that I particularly appreciate the fact that somebody out there doing this, and you seem to be a natural for it. So I think this is an issue of finding the right proper balance. You need to we need to let the partners know, because I can tell you personal experience. I've had an employee that called me in Albertson when their portal opened up, and all they said was, I am a member of the 1B thing, and there's no, you don't go, I don't think you go there and then you show the badge or the proof that you are who you are. A lot of this is done on the, what do you call, the honor system.
Honor system.
And so, how do you prevent someone that's 64 from saying they're 65? It's just, that you show an ID, but then you say you're like an adjutant from the sheriff's department, and you don't have to show a badge. It's a difficult situation. I don't want to make it even more complicated, but what I want to say is I think the majority of the providers that we have, the majority of the partners that we have, the majority of the efforts that the county health department has done, it's been to try to be as accommodating as possible within the rules that you've given. Because when people get out of the rules that you're given, not only will we get some pushback, but we may get a reduction, and that's going to impact everybody. So the message is to our partners and to everybody else, just stay within the lane. Try as much as possible not to deviate. When you deviate, have a reason to, okay? Because it creates a lot of pain and trouble when you don't. We have a large law enforcement contingent, especially Homeland Security and everybody else from DEA to the FBI in Yuma. And obviously, to me, that contingent should have been dealt with by the federal government with the special allocation of vaccines. They shouldn't be waiting in line to get it when other people are, already getting it, and, it's creating some problems. And I know that because I get the calls and the comments. So I want to almost try to get to the end of this with a lot of thanks for the Herculean, that's a bad word for me to choose, right? But for the effort that you guys are putting out. And I need Tony to come back up a little bit because I have a couple of questions for him while you stay there, because this is going to involve something that.
Mr. Chair, I just want to, before Diana leaves, that I'm really appreciative for what you and your department are doing, because it's obviously, the question that I asked to Tony about the sites, it's, there's people that can't drive. There's people that, like my mom, she got her vaccine. She got her second already, but those 2 times someone had to take a day off or time off from work to take her, and that's not only my mom. There's several people out there so sites are very critical, and it does make a difference for those critical persons that really need the vaccine.
We have a lot of multi-generational homes where people are taking care of elderly.
Yeah.
In their 80s, 90s, and so they're not part of the organized nursing home healthcare type system. So without pods like that, there's no way to capture, that.
Yeah, and if you take care of an elderly person, I know, if you take care of an elderly person and they get vaccinated and you don't get vaccinated, I mean, it's one of those cases. It's pretty bad, but.
Mr. Chairman, in case the other supervisors didn't know or weren't aware, Diana did implement a home delivery. So she was going out and administering it to people who specifically needed that, and that's above and beyond.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so I know Tony came up and sat back.
It's very slow, but we're trying.
Tony and Diana, there are 2 issues I wanted to talk to you both. One is the issue of testing and its cost, and the vaccine and its cost. I don't have a particular problem when people tell me they have an administrative cost to cover, and I know that whenever you have insurance, that insurance is going to cover whatever the administrative cost. But last time the discussion was about the wide range of what suppliers, in this case, I don't know what they're called, but I mean providers can charge. And I wish there was some consistency about the charge, but we cannot control that. It's individual. And I know that, for example, the hospital is successful in doing clinics that would involve 1,000 people, while some other entities may only be able to do 200. So there's a discrepancy there. But I do want the health department to monitor that a little bit, more in terms of you're not gonna set their administrative fees, but it would be nice for a clearinghouse of sorts that people can actually contact and say, where can I get the vaccine? Because some people are giving it for free. If you have an insurance card, it's free. If you don't, people can charge a fee for it, and they're within their rights to do that, especially if it's a hospital or a clinic that it's got to spend the time to do this, got to set up an employee to do it. But the federal government is assisting most of these entities already. They're already paying them a lot of money to just simply do that. And you providing the vaccine and the testing supplies. So I just want to send out a message to all these, community facilities or nonprofits that they should be cognizant that if you charge too much, it is a barrier for some people to do this, especially if they don't have insurance. And they would be afraid to get tested, say, in a place that will charge them $60 or $100, as opposed to simply getting a free test at Somerton or even in some places in Yuma. I'd like for the county, for you guys, whichever one of you guys wants to handle that, to keep tabs on that so that we can see if there's anybody that's really abusing the system. If you're given the hospital, and I don't want to use the hospital as the only example, but it's the easiest one in front of us. But if you're providing the hospital with 2,000 vaccines a week, and they're applying them, and they're charging whatever they're charging, I don't want to get into it. We're talking about tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars that they're charging someone, the insurance company or someone, to do that. I don't have a problem with that, particularly if they keep it within what I would consider reasonable fees. And reasonable fees range, right? It's what's reasonable for me. It might not be reasonable for Supervisor Simmons, but there has to be. It's not cost control. It's not what I'm talking about. You guys cannot set that administrative cost, I don't think. But somebody needs to be keeping an eye on that, so that essentially when we talk about people being enthused to go get a test, they're not meeting a barrier of cost, which is sometimes a problem. The vaccine is the same way. The vaccine, I think providers aren't being charged for the vaccine, and you can put, I heard different ranges, but some of these clinics, when you do a clinic outside, I know the county can put 200 vaccines in 2 hours easily. So if the hospital was doing 1,000, I use the hospital too much. They're gonna, I don't want to end up at the hospital and they, look at Tony Reyes. But they're easy to point to. They are capable of doing a lot of vaccinations really quick. You can apply 50 in an hour easy. So I just want to bring that up and say, look, I am not focusing on the hospital. I'm focusing on trying to make sure there are no monetary barriers, especially in a very low-income county like this, that there are no monetary barriers that we can see will prevent people from accessing this free supplies that we're providing for them, basically, or the university or somebody's providing for them. Just please, if you talk to them, make them understand that we don't want to find out later that they charge hundreds of thousands of dollars to apply a vaccine or to do testing that we consider to be that we want it to be accessible to the community in general. Okay?
Do we know if these new partners that are coming on board, where the vaccine is directly shipped to them, are they charging for these?
Are you talking about like the pharmacies?
The pharmacies and whatever, are they charging?
So for the vaccine, I can speak for the vaccine specific. For the vaccine, if you have, when you signed your consent form, there's a place in there that asks you for your insurance information. If you have insurance, the place administering the vaccine has the ability to charge a small administrative fee to the insurance. So you, as a person receiving the vaccine, are not expected to pay a copay or anything out of pocket. It should be free because it goes straight to your the administration fee. Would go straight to the insurance company. If you do not have insurance, there's a place in there where you say you do not have insurance, and that is reimbursed by that administration fee is reimbursed by the federal government, and that should be the case regardless of wherever you get the vaccine. So I can't answer definitively, but the case should be nobody should have to pay a copay. The vaccine should be completely free because you're either getting your insurance billed for it or the federal government is reimbursing the entity for that cost. So at least that's the case for the vaccine administration. So I don't want anybody to feel that that's a deterrent. We can certainly follow up just to verify, because I think that's important, because I know sometimes when people, for example, with the flu shot, they see the sign that says free flu shot, and then you get there, and then they're like, but, or it's, you know,
Yeah.
$20, $60 or whatever.
See,
So I understand where your question's coming from, and my staff will follow up on that to just verify that there's consistency across the board.
And the reason I worry about that, because being a small community, if you get one person or one place charging like that, it spreads. And then all of a sudden, everybody's saying, well, they're charging for it.
And you don't want that to be a deterrent. Right now, I'm very grateful that we don't have the level of vaccine hesitancy that other places are experiencing. People want to get the vaccine. So again, misinformation spreads so much faster than actual facts, and it's so much easier. And there's already so many barriers like lack of vaccine, the availability, and I don't want perception, to be one of those. And I don't want people thinking that because they're a cost and they can't afford it, that they cannot get the vaccine. So again, the vaccine should be completely free, either because it's billed to your insurance, but I'll make sure that my office follows up on that. We'll reach out to all the sites that are listed. And for anybody watching to know where you can get your vaccine, visit the ADHS Find My Vaccine website, and you will see the locations as well as the protocol for you to register for your
All right. Now, I know Supervisor Lyons wants to say something. I just wanted to go back to the last presentation last time where I got a list. And I don't want to be specific again, but that list had so many different fees. And one of them was so specific about if you can't pay it, we'll give you like 45 days and you get a 25% discount if you pay it within 30 days and a 10% discount. That led me to believe that organization, without getting into details, was charging up to $100 and some odd for a test. I have now found out that some of them have to be run through their own labs. They send it to another lab, whatever. The cost to them might have been that, but the problem is that most people show up may not realize they're going to be charged, that much if you don't have insurance. And I wanted to make it clear that I do understand the need to charge people for some sort of service, but if it becomes a deterrent to get people tested or to get people a vaccine, then I need the health department and the emergency management system to make sure that is not a deterrent, that is something that they understand. If we're providing them, if they're providers, that we are providing them the vaccine or we're providing them the test kits, that they understand that we expect in return for them not to be a barrier, but to be of assistance. And that's basically the message. Supervisor Lyons?
How are we doing on testing?
So testing volume has decreased because I think people have shifted their focus to the vaccine administration. And I think it's important to the point that, Chairman Reyes was making earlier. This is just, the vaccine is a very important part of our toolkit, but as I've said before, it's in limited supply. It's going to take us a while until we are able to offer a vaccine to everybody. And then again, it's 2 doses. So until the Johnson & Johnson one comes on the market, and I think it's going for a review at the end of the month, but until we have more options and we continue these 2 doses, that takes a while. So it's important for people to continue to test. Again, we know that you can be asymptomatic and spread the virus. So again, with the partner organizations and everybody that's conducting testing, it's important to not just shift completely to vaccination in lieu of the testing strategy. It's a balanced equation and one that's equally important, especially now as we're working to make sure that we reopen our schools. And that's one of the reasons that we're working with the school districts, and we proactively, the schools, again, the transmission in the schools was minimal. Like, they did such an amazing job with their protocols and keeping people safe. We're working to vaccinate the teachers. So keeping that in mind, we also partnered with them to provide rapid testing so they can have that option for their staff. So that's an example of how the school district was very proactive to implement an in-house testing strategy so that they're testing even asymptomatic people that might have had an exposure, just to be safe. They're continuing to implement their cleaning hygiene protocol. They have very strict guidelines as far as checking for symptoms, as far as their surveillance, and now making sure that their workforce is vaccinated. So that's an example of a closed system that really checked all the marks and needs to be duplicated as a community. And I know in the community, we have different parts and different entities, but I think we all need to remember that the goal is the same, and we need to, as a community, duplicate that system that they created, because it's an excellent system. You have balanced surveillance, with vaccination, with increased hygiene, because just because you have gotten your vaccine doesn't mean you can't, you shouldn't take the precautions necessary. And I know that we're all we've been doing it for a year and it's exhausting, but until we can offer that vaccine to the majority of the people who need it, and we get to that level where we can say, okay, we have some level of community immunity, we need to continue to do that in order to return to our business, the way they were, continue to expand the options to have more public events, and definitely open our schools and get those kids back in the classroom, because the schools provide such a valuable and critical safety net for all our students. And if kids aren't in schools and parents don't have that, same thing for daycare workers. So another shout out to all the amazing teachers and the daycare workers and all those people that have just been teaching those kids under those, and we're just all trying to do our best to get back to normal. And again, my plea for continued patience. We're moving slowly, but we're getting there. So yes, please continue to advocate for testing, and even if you're not sick.
I think the I'm moving slowly is not a good statement. We're moving as fast as we can.
We can, yeah.
Yeah, we're not moving slowly and
It
trying
just
to
feels,
do it.
I just wish we could move so much
I know,
faster.
but I mean,
What-
go ahead.
What's our capacity for rapid testing? And what's our turnaround time for rapid testing? Because I'm getting calls and questions from travelers.
So rapid testing options, and again, that's an option that a lot of the entities can charge for, because that's not your standard. Your standard's the PCR, and depending on the lab that you're using, that could be a 24-hour, 48. Again, we've had discussions here about, in some instances in the beginning of pandemic, how it was like 7 days or more. So right now, you should be able to get a standard PCR test within 24, 48 hours and get your results, because volume is not there in the way it was at the beginning. And in this whole time that we've been doing this, labs have increased their capacity. So the turnaround time should be better. For rapid testing, if you have rapid tests available to you, and there's different models available, but for the most part, it's a 15-minute turnaround time. And so the thing with the rapid test is they're really good at capturing symptomatic infection when people are symptomatic. And just like PCR tests, you can come in, get tested and test negative, and then 2 days later, you can be positive because there was enough viral load for the test to capture that. But rapid tests, for the most part, across the different models, you have a 15-minute window. A lot of times, if you are positive, it comes back positive sooner than the 15 minutes. But for the standard time, the wait time is 15 minutes. But again, we have different entities in town that are offering that. I know we've made it available to the schools, the congregate settings, the nursing homes, because those are the people that are actively testing their staff on a regular basis. And it's part of the safety measure, particularly in our assisted living facilities.
Could we add an additional element as far as the communication, saying that for people traveling, that they have the ability to go to these places? Because I continue to get questions from people who say that they have to travel out of town.
Have to show,
Yeah.
On the county website, a lot of the ones that
Is it there?
Reyes talked about, it indicates they have rapid testing, and it's a little more, I think, because
Yeah.
of the quick turnaround. They are a little more expensive, so those are available.
Okay.
Depends on what site offers them, some don't.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about when I say if we can do some clearinghouse type situation where people can go into a website and they could see a list of providers and give them a sense of the difference between rapid testing and where it's free and where it's not and where it pays and how much. That really, I think, helps direct the flow of traffic. You're not telling them where to go. You're just simply telling them what to expect. And I think that helps a lot in stabilizing this feeling that I don't know what's going to happen if I go here, if I go there, or if I go anywhere. That is one important thing. And I know that we kept you up a lot of time in here. And I wanted to get into the migrant refugee drop-offs that are starting to happen in the community. Now, the way I see them, because I don't have enough information and I don't know who does, information about whether they've been in quarantine, whether they've been tested before, whether there's some protocol that the Homeland Security people have gone through some protocol, COVID protocol. I don't have enough information. I don't know who does enough information, but I know that dropping them in the middle of a community without the information necessary to determine whether they need to be in some isolated situation, or whether in other words, if they are dropped off in the community and some of them end up flying, or some of them end up being taken in a bus to somewhere, or some of them end up being sheltered someplace else. The most important thing for me to be able to tell the community is that when we're looking at the general health of the community, we're not sort of accepting a situation that is going to put more people in jeopardy. So I don't know enough about the program. They don't necessarily communicate with me in particular. They may communicate with the mayor of Yuma. They may communicate with the mayor of San Luis or Somerton or wherever they're dropping people off. But this is a county COVID situation that I see as, Tony, you know, before it becomes a major issue, it will become a major issue. Somebody can point to a refugee and say, well, I didn't have it and I did this and I got it or something. That's going to be an issue that is going to get blown out of proportion, probably. I don't know if that really is a term I can use, but definitely, this is something that happened 2 years ago, 2 years ago, that some of the nonprofits were ready to deal with because they didn't have a pandemic to deal with. So now there's a concern that if you take in refugees and you put them in a congregate setting, all you're doing is putting them in a situation where they're going to contaminate each other because you don't know. And as we well know by the testing protocols, you can test negative one day and be positive 2 days later. So this is not, to me, a simple issue of where or how do you get this number of people and move into this location. This is an issue of information having to take place between the Homeland Security people that are basically processing these people and placing them in the community, whatever the community is. It could be San Luis, it could be Somerton, it could be Yuma, or even Welton. We don't know, because I don't know if we have any way of saying, don't drop them here, drop them there. They're doing 1, 20, 50, 10. They're individuals, they're groups. It's just so unpredictable from what I've heard, from what I've seen. It's so unpredictable, but the most important thing for me would be to have emergency systems or the health department be told or be advised, okay, we've got this situation, the gentleman has gone through some medical reviews, they have, I mean, you're talking, Supervisor Lyons, about travel. People traveling from one place to another. Well, they may have to go to New York, which requires them to be in quarantine for 14 days or 10 days or 3 days, whatever. This is a much more difficult issue than it was in 2018, 2019. I think that the issue in 2018, 19 was just simply, can we hold them long enough for them to be processed to where they're going? Now, are they healthy enough to be, to be held someplace for a while, or to be hosted, or whatever we call that, sheltered. That's the word I was searching. To be sheltered for the time they need to go ahead and go to where they're going. I mean, they may have family come and pick them up, but if they have family in California, or family in Washington, or family in Oregon, and they're coming into town, this is a kind of a complex issue now. I'm not trying to make it any more complex than it already is, but I do want the health department and the emergency management system to keep a close eye on it. You may not be able to host them, you may not be able to process them, but you may be able to find out at least, are they healthy enough to be sheltered in the different communities? Did I make sense? Because I think I rambled on for a while.
If you look at last time, Diana probably can speak more about it. They have 80 cases of anybody with some type of communicable disease. She can probably talk more about what the process was. They're going to follow the same protocol with that as well.
Now, this is not the same as 2018.
Right. And I can only speak from our previous experience, where when we were talking, I know there was a lot of concerns about the different types of potential illnesses. And so what we saw for the most part were vaccine preventable diseases. So things like chicken pox was big. We saw some injuries just related to travel, so injuries to the feet, dehydration, some GI issues, all things that were a lot easier to identify. And we worked really closely with the organizations who did an amazing job of providing the shelter. We worked with them to make sure we had, protocol for hygiene, making sure that, we identified people that needed to be separated because they either had, something like chicken pox or a GI type thing, a stomach issue, so that we had infection control. That's a lot easier to identify than this virus where you can be completely asymptomatic and not know, which goes again to the need for testing, because you can test one day and then the next day the results can be much different. So it's a much more difficult, situation to assess. So yes, we will work with the entities just to make sure we have better eyes on the ground, because it is going to be a lot trickier.
Yeah, okay, Supervisor Lines?
Mr. Chairman, about 3-4 weeks ago, I was briefed by the Western State Sheriffs. They had a concern about the illegal migrant population being released over in Texas. And because of the board that I serve on, the Arizona-Mexico Commission, we reached out to some of our partners across the border to ask them if they were taking any preventative steps as a result of what we were seeing, because they were releasing 50 at a time into some of the smaller Texas communities and over into to New Mexico. We hadn't seen it in Arizona up until last week. I've spoken with, over the last 3 days, to half of the Arizona delegation. They are talking with CBP, Homeland Security, specifically addressing this to make sure that if they are not taking care of those specific issues at the border with testing, that's addressed so that it doesn't continue to augment kind of our current crisis that we see ourselves in with the spread of COVID. So they should be addressing that today. I know that 2 of the congressmen, at least yesterday, wrote a specific letter with concerns from that we had seen here in Yuma County.
Well, again, I'm asking the wrong person for information, as I can tell now. But, I mean, that's the kind of information that needs to be shared with the health department. I mean, I know that this is, nonprofits are can't step up and supposed to step up, but most nonprofits will shy away from the challenge, the health challenge, not from the sheltering challenge or the processing challenge. They can do that. It's just that once you have this element of health element in there, it's not Zika, it's not tuberculosis, it's not any of those things that they test for. It's this particular virus that if we have one single instance where they come into the community and somebody can point to getting infected by a migrant refugee, it's going to be a very large, there's going to be a large reaction to it. So I just wanted to sort of bring you up on it, and I know you already know most of this stuff. I did know that Supervisor Lyons was in contact with some people that were already dealing with this, but it's nice to find out that somebody is taking a look at it from that perspective, because I think we expect our Homeland Security people to really consider these facts before they, make a move. But sometimes we just assume things that aren't. And in this particular case, I think it behooves us to find out ahead of time, just what steps have been taken to make sure that these issues are not going to become a health issue for the residents of Yuma County or anywhere else in the United States. I mean, they're not staying in Yuma County, most of them. They're going someplace else. And with this virus spreading the way it is, it seems to me an easy thing that, any of these situations could become a major situation. We put them in a plane or put them in a bus with another 50 or 60 or 70 or 80 or 200 people without having some sort of testing that makes sure that at least at the point that you move them, they're healthy enough to be around a crowd. That's probably what the point
I was
is.
just going to comment, last week I met with Yuma County and some representatives of CBP, and then yesterday I was on the phone with them locally. And pretty much the same thing you're saying is they're going to go through the process. They're going to ensure that there's no medical issues, just like they did in the past. They had some chickenpox, TB, then they'll isolate those people. If they need medical care, they'll send them to whatever appropriate medical facility they need. But then their role at that point ends. In the past, they used to load them up and transport them to facilities with ICE. And my understanding is because of their current requirements that they're allowed to do, they're just going to turn them loose out into the community. They may be able to transport them a short distance, but to transport them out of the community, it's not going to happen with CBP. Their hands are kind of tied. But they will go through the process. They'll vet them to ensure there's no criminal history that they can prove. If so, then they'll probably be given a court date and released into the community. The biggest issue with them is the family units and ensuring that they do some type of biometrics to ensure that they are related, like they're saying, before they release those family units out in the community as well.
All right, so hopefully there's a protocol that's being followed, and that protocol includes the health issues that we're dealing with, the specific health issues we're dealing with this coronavirus situation. And not just, I mean, I know the tuberculosis, I know that other communicable diseases are probably screened, and that is a normal process. They will screen everybody, that I know. I'm not concerned that much about any of those. I'm concerned about whether they have been screened well enough as to be able to at least reasonably claim that they're COVID-free. That's probably the key to this.
That's part of that medical
All right.
screening, and next Monday, I'm meeting with Yuma and all the southern emergency managers, and we'll be discussing maybe a plan how we're gonna be dealing with this, because what we had in the past, they expect that to be.
Well, I am aware, Tony, I'm aware that the city of Yuma spent some money in transporting or, sort of chartering something to transport these individuals, which is great, but they're not going to be putting a lot of money into this. My experience in the past was that as a county, we were basically, our hands were tied in what we could do. And as a city, I think they're gonna deal with the same controversy, that it's not necessarily going to be a political issue in as much as a health issue. And so if it's a health issue, it's gonna eventually end up in the health department or us. And if it does, then I'd like you to be aware that what we need to do is get some clearance in how we can spend some of that CARES money in this particular issue, which is not common to almost anywhere in the country. It is more common to border areas. Like you said, they're not going to be transporting these people to Phoenix or to other places that are far. They're going to be dropping them off in the nearby communities, which makes this a border issue more than a national issue. It's a national issue, the refugee situation, but it is a border issue, the processing of people who end up out in our communities. And I think our communities are going to need some help. And so, just stand ready, because, they're going to need some help dealing with
that. Phone call with state legislators, and I'm sure you've seen some of the letters that have been pushed up to Washington, D.C., echoing a lot of those concerns that Yuma County had, and I expressed that when I was on the meeting, that it's not just an Yuma County issue, it's a southern border issue for Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and California. So we're going to see
hopefully
that
will come
across the whole border.
All right, I think we took enough time. I mean, the attorneys are going to start complaining. This is not part of the reporting, but it is COVID related as far as we're concerned. But thank you very much. I think you made, the right points, and we made the points that we need to keep an eye on this situation. It can become something manageable, or it becomes unmanageable at some particular point in time. And emergency management is for that. Emergency management. The health department, I think, has a function throughout this whole process, but they're more like monitoring and making sure. The cost of doing some of this stuff is going to be, to me, an issue for the county. Last time we set aside some funds for sheltering that we didn't use, I think. So, that last time might have been a sheltering issue, an immigration and a migrant issue. This time, I think it's going to be more focusing on the pandemic and the possibilities that some of these people may end up in the community without the proper safety precautions. Okay? Yes, Supervisor Lyons?
I forgot one thing. Governor Ducey's office did follow up yesterday, and he was talking to the other governors to talk with DHS and HHS so that they could address this in real time with the federal delegation.
Okay.
So that, the counties didn't bear the burden of
that may be what we use the
taking
$41
care of it.
million of the CARES Act. I'm just kidding. It's kidding. All right. Anything else? No? Anything else? This is taking a long time. Thank you for your patience of waiting this long, and thank you guys for showing up, and thank you for the work you guys are doing. We do appreciate the fact that somebody capable and professional is handling these things for us. Thank you very much. All right, so without further ado, yes.
Just remind the chair and the board that there's an addendum.
Oh yeah, I know. I was getting to it, but well, all right, good. There is an addendum that the county attorney's office is here for. I was wondering why we had an extra visitor from the county attorney's office, and now I know why.
I did apologize to Mr. Holzer for not speaking up sooner. He should probably have that item before.
You should know that better. You shouldn't let politicians just drone on. You should, remind them. County attorney authorize and approve the settlement. This is the regular addendum number 1. It's been legally posted, so we're able to discuss it and make a decision. This is to authorize and approve the settlement of the claims made in the case of Southwest Gas Corporation against the Department of, Revenue, I guess, by reducing the full cash value and limited property value of the subject property from $2 billion? $2 billion? Is that what it is? $2,679,921,000 to $2,679,921,000 $464,921,000 based upon the terms and conditions, based upon the terms and conditions set forth in the attached draft consent judgment, and authorize the chairman to execute all necessary settlement, any and all necessary settlement documents. The floor is yours. I think that was pretty self-explanatory, but yeah. Well,
my name's Tony Holzer. I'm the Chief Deputy Assessor. I wasn't asked to do a presentation. I was really asked to just come and.
I think we've been briefed. Maybe Supervisor Lyons hasn't necessarily been briefed, and I think he probably needs to know at least the top of the details. I mean, it's kind of simple to us.
The gist of it is that Southwest Gas protested their statewide value, and they have a statewide value of about $2.6 billion. They wanted that reduced by $1.4 billion. So they wanted a value somewhere around $1.2 billion. Department of Revenue did what they do, and they did an excellent job working it out with them to a settlement of $200 million statewide. Yuma County's share of that will be about $7 million. And that works out to about $1.3 million in assessed value. So it's a lot, tremendously less amount than what Southwest Gas would be asking for. It's for tax year 21, so it'll affect this tax year, and it's
considering what could have happened, this is one of those good outcomes that's going to reduce the pain for Yuma County by a sizable amount. And it's something we can handle, right?
It's
not something we have an option, but I mean.
Yeah, the treasurer might be able to answer the tax question better than me, but based on my estimate, it's going to be somewhere around $150,000 in lost tax.
That's revenue, tax revenue.
Yeah, for tax year 21.
Yeah.
Which isn't, I mean, the whole scheme of things. We go through
it isn't throwaway money, but it isn't something that's going to disrupt.
It's not throwaway money, but we, on a daily basis in the assessor's office, we adjust values and do tax roll corrections to the tax roll practically daily. So this isn't an uncommon thing. It just happens to be a centrally valued property. So it's a huge property. It's done at the state level. We don't value centrally valued properties at the local level. And so it kind of sticks out. It really sticks out as kind of a big deal in the scheme of things.
It isn't. All right. Okay. Do you have enough information?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Then I'll entertain a motion to go ahead and approve the item as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Been motion and second to approve addendum item number 1 as presented. Any discussion on the item? No? All those in favor of the item signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Then we have the event calendar and current events. Last item in the agenda. I want to warn, well, not warn, but actually make a statement about short meetings to Supervisor Lyons. There is a curse that whenever there's a short agenda, the meeting will last a lot longer. So, this is your first time.
Well, maybe you and I shouldn't talk.
Well,
thanks,
well, it doesn't matter. It seems to happen no matter who's running the meeting.
All right.
You have short agendas and then they get long. So we're going to go to event calendar and events and begin with Supervisor Porches because he was the one that said that I make him last longer. So we're going to test him on this.
Just a short few comments. I want to thank Josh, Scott, and Public Works crew for the cleanup on Saturday on Somerton Avenue and between County 13 and 14. They did an excellent job. Also, adult probation. They were the ones that provided the labor, and so I got a whole bunch of pictures. If you want me to share them with you for future use, or
you blurred the faces already?
Well, they're from far away. I mean, just basically.
Well, if they're the probation department, there may be an issue with just publishing people's faces.
Yeah.
They're the probation department. That normally means those people are not necessarily willing to have themselves identified. So that's what I was referring to. I was kind of jokingly talking about the staff. But the staff is not a concern. I think the staff is okay. It's just that you don't want to publish, I think, pictures of probation department.
There was also someone from the, couple people from the Kashan Indian tribe there, and they did, had a conversation with them, and they've been talking to the Indian Bureau of Affairs, and they're gonna start working on a fence, kind of fence area there to fence that off, so people won't be able to trespass or get in there and just dump. I mean, they probably took out, like, I want to say maybe 500 tires out of there. It was incredible. I mean, it's just, I mean, tires that I mean, those big semi tires, like someone just went and dumped the whole set from the rig and from the double trailer, because there was a whole bunch of semi tires there. So that's it.
All right, Supervisor Simmons.
Attended the Welton Mohawk Irrigation Drainage District Board meeting, and I want to thank them. Talked to them. They donated 2.5 acres to the new Tacno water plant or company that we're trying to get set up out there. So that was a big savings, and hopefully it'll speed up things a little bit. Attended a Welton PSPRS meeting, the BOS retreat, LEPC meeting. I want to remind everybody Hank Days Parade out in the foothills on Saturday. And just to kind of mention it, this last week or so, we've lost 2 people out in East County that were very, very well known and very visible. Patty Ware passed away a few days ago, and Carolyn Nickerson with Nickerson Farms and stuff. Just want to send our thoughts and prayers out to their families. And that's about it.
Okay, Supervisor Lyons.
Well, as you can tell from my comments, but I've been busy. I think I've had meetings or talked with every. Why are you laughing at me, Tony?
Because you did. You did.
I think I've had meetings with every committee that I serve on here in Yuma, and then throughout the state as well. So I don't need to take any more time.
Well, I'll tell you what. I know we've gone through a lot of thank yous to people who have come over and done their job, but I want to thank you personally, because you've been probably from the beginning one of the most involved supervisors I have ever met. That's good and mostly good. So I do want to thank you for all the stuff. I was aware that you had a lot of contacts, that you had a lot of people that you can call, but over the last month, it's become evident to me that you hold a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of contacts that is going to be very useful to Yuma County, and sometimes we don't say that enough. So thank you for all your efforts. They're appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, so I have a couple of things that's it? Okay, all right, I have a couple of things to talk about briefly. One is the budget times. I mean, I've made it sort of kind of clear that the 24th is the date. I won't be able to be here present, and it'll be very difficult for me to stay in communications that day. So if we could begin the process of reviewing those dates to make sure that we meet the statutory requirements, but still allows me to be somewhat present, I would appreciate it. We don't wait that long anymore, because if we wait long enough, we may not be able to move anything on that agenda. And I know I'm imposing something on a personal level, but I do like to attend those meetings specifically. I find that doing the budget is probably the most important thing we do as supervisors, doing the county budget. So I like to be present when that happens. The second thing is I wrote it down. Wait, where did I write it down? Okay. I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget it, and I forgot what I wrote it down at. So that's going to save us some time. But then I'm going to remember it and then bring it back some other time. So, broadband. Oh, it was an issue when you were talking about broadband, and the state legislature setting aside $10 million to do rural broadband. Somebody needs to tell them that amount for the rural state of Arizona for broadband is something that will probably solve the problem in one county, maybe 2, but that there is like 13 rural counties, or well, maybe 12. I don't think I want to include Pinal County anymore in the rural county situation, but I mean, somebody needs to bring forth. It's been my experience, Ian, that the legislature deals better when they have some sort of a number that they can point to that is real, as opposed to something You know, in other words, you get a better chance to get something assigned by the legislature for your county, if you're county specific and you have a number, like we did with the airport relocation, situation where we said, okay, well, this is what we'll need. So see if you can, or remind me, better yet, or remind us during the meeting next Friday to bring back the broadband and see if you can sort of dust up what Paul Melcher had done in terms of research, so that we have a better sense of what it will take in Yuma County to do this. We may be able to get them to assign a certain amount in case they can't get the bill through because it's too broad in nature. Okay, that should be the things that I wrote down: budget calendar, broadband, and the facilities design committee. How soon are they? When are they meeting, and when are we going to get a report? I get a feeling that I've been here for 22 years.
Friday?
And I haven't been able to move that process. Friday?
Yeah, we meet
Friday's our meeting.
Meet Friday? Okay, well, I'll expect some sort of report after that, sometime in the next board meeting. Thank you. Susan, you're next.
Well, I was able to visit with my sister. She came out to visit, which was nice. So I left Friday off because that was really fun event. And one of the most important things related to the budget is that we had the Yuma Regional Communications System budget discussion last week, and the Wow, thank you so much. Okay.
That one.
The Yuma Regional Communication Systems budget meeting that they set the annual rates for the radio systems as well as our contributions to 911 and the PSAPs. And they've kept the radio system costs relatively flat, so we're very appreciative of that. So we know those numbers now going into the budget process. So that was an informative meeting, and they hold those meetings quarterly, and I hope to plan to be able to attend those on a quarterly basis going forward. And that's all I have to report.
Well, again, thank you very much. We were able to sort of get out of here before 11:30 this morning session. So thank you. I know it was supposed to be a short meeting, so well, I'm not gonna say I'm totally sorry about it, but I'll try to keep it moving faster, guys. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon at the next board meeting. All right, thank you. That's it.